another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. It's the 23rd day of April 2017. I'm your host. My name is Doug Owen. You can follow me on Twitter at BLN Radio. The mothership, the hub, the website to go to for this show is blacklistedradio.com. We have an interactive chat room there. A lot of cool features, a lot of stuff that's exclusive to the website. Other content, interviews. You can find an archive of the past, 10 years worth of podcasts. A lot of stuff there for you. Check it out. I'm the senior editor of blacklistednews.com. That's the website that I curate news on a daily basis alongside all of you out there that are our human intelligence apparatus, the apparatus that you're not apparatchiks, you're apparatus. You guys definitely bring so much to the table when it comes to enlightening and informing me as to what's happening in the world today. So that's what we try to do with the website. A lot to get into. It's been a pretty crazy week. Plenty of geopolitics and domestic issues to talk about. One of the things that we're going to start the show with, before we get to politics, before we get to Trump, before we get to China, all of the things that are happening, I wanted to talk about YouTube for a moment. Just cut to the chase. Last week, I was notified that we are not allowed to monetize videos that we put out on a weekly basis of the broadcast of this show in its podcast format any longer. So basically, for people that use YouTube, there's a way to monetize. Most of the commercials that you see on YouTube when you're watching a video are put there by the person that uploaded the content, whatever it may be. Now, you can apply, and I had applied, to be able to monetize the videos. Now, let's be honest. I mean, most of the videos that we have are in the hundreds to thousands range of views. We don't have a huge YouTube presence. I joke about this being limited hangout, not the CIA term, but the fact that this message that we bring on a weekly basis is not going to be received by people that are, die-hard political fans. The people that are on the left, the right, even libertarians, anarchists. I mean, we just don't really tote any political philosophy here. And so in that, not to mention the fact that, it is conspiratorially tainted or tinted, that really does limit the amount of people that'll especially watch it on YouTube. Now, plenty of people over the last, 10 years since the inception of YouTube have become professional YouTubers. There's people like Paul Joseph Watson over at InfoWars and Prison Planet that'll get, millions of views. Mark Dice is another example of a guy who has just this huge epic following on YouTube that's kind of in the same genre of blacklisted news. And those guys, not just those guys, I mean, PewDiePie, there's a number of famous YouTubers are making their livelihoods out of making videos on the YouTube/Google platform with their advertising. I mean, we're talking about, probably tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars annually from people watching videos. So YouTube has taken some heat. You probably heard the discussion about whether or not Google should be putting ads on neo-Nazi videos, ISIS videos, things that are quote-unquote not brand-friendly or advertiser-friendly. So for me personally, I mean, I threw a pity party for myself on Twitter. I put out the tweet that showed the notice from YouTube saying that you're not brand-friendly, which is, not shocking. And for me, it was only a matter of time before that letter came. At least, that's the way I thought about it. I never thought that they would allow this to continue to go on for too long before they figure out that we talk about topics that are somewhat taboo. I'm pretty sure the Pizzagate hashtags probably were what did my channel, that only has maybe 1,000 viewers, completely in. So it's it brings up the debate about whether or not YouTube's a private platform, and it is. The ability for them to control the content that they want to put on their website on their servers and to host is completely up to YouTube. Now, one of the things that made YouTube awesome was the fact that you could find all sorts of controversial content and useful content. Need to know how to change your brakes? You can probably find a YouTube video on that. Want to know, how to do different tasks? There's somebody on there that shows you how to do it. I mean, I needed YouTube to teach me how to swaddle a baby. Very informative. Found some great info, some great channels for baby stuff. And that's what YouTube is actually going to be relegated to. Most things have their time, and then something replaces it. MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, these things come and they go. Some of them have a lot longer lifespan, but even IBM Computer is not what it once was. Massive layoffs last week. And, got to make those profits for the profit sharers and the stockholders. So, that's a whole nother debate as to what your allegiance is in your business model. And I've talked about our business model. I knew that at some point YouTube would become so big, so prolific that it would have to start censoring. The pressure from advertisers that we see. One of the big problems with this advertising model is that advertisers have a huge amount of control over the content that is distributed through their networks, whether it's mainstream media, TV, cable news, you name it. We saw the Bill O'Reilly fallout. It wasn't so much that Bill O'Reilly's a total a-hole and that he probably sexually harassed a lot of women. Whether or not he did, I don't know. Not personally interested. He didn't, touch my butt. So, but if he did, I would be pretty upset about it, I guess. But it wasn't any of the things that he did that were deplorable or horrible or any of the nasty things that he said to people. It was the advertiser backlash. Same thing for Breitbart. There's a huge campaign. A lot of these George Soros fronts are trying their best to basically shake advertisers to the point where they use that money that people depend on for their livelihoods as a form of control and censorship. So I listened to Paul Joseph Watson. He's had some videos about that, and now saying that even though there's no bad words, there's no none of the 7 deadly sinly words that you're not allowed to say. Regardless of that, YouTube's been putting age restrictions, making it harder for videos to go viral, because if you have to log into the Google platform or to your Gmail, it just makes it de-incentivizes somebody. You're not going to get that click view that you normally would, because when they click, then they got to go through a bunch of rigmarole. So these people obviously have a lot more investment financially in YouTube, and it's one of those things that as we look at new media and its role in the daily diet of consumable information that people can easily access, they're going to make it harder. And brand safe is one of these terms that, I think this show is probably not very brand safe. We talk about Monsanto and Syngenta. We talk about the Dow Corporation. We talk about ExxonMobil. We talk about a lot of corporations that you see if you turn on PBS. Support the documentary. Support the arts and the information that you're getting. I mean, every time I turn on PBS, it's telling me about the Rockefeller Foundation and Boeing and BNSF, Warren Buffett. It's telling me about all the people, the Koch brothers, which has to be kind of a weird thing for a lot of those people that are watching. So YouTube is going after people that are not brand safe. I mean, I'm not shocked. It doesn't bother me too much, to be honest, because I don't have a huge amount of investment. But that's the problem. When you invest in other people's creations, sometimes they completely remove themselves from the people that made it great. And the people out there, I mean, I don't know how many millions of views the Alex Jones videos have received over the years, but there's a huge contingent of people that have put content on there that have made YouTube what it is. So not to give all of these people credit, but I mean, there's plenty of kitty cat videos and other things that people probably find a lot more interesting than conspiratorial talk. Of course, excuse me, this brings us to this idea that it's censorship. Of course it's censorship in that people are censoring the type of content that they put on their platform. Obviously, I am a huge advocate of decentralized platforms. It's one of the reasons that I run my own podcast. I broadcast it through RBN. But the content is mine. I don't monetize this because of views or putting commercials or doing promotional codes and things for products that you guys may want to buy or may not. And for most of the people that listen to the show, if you listen on RBN and you're just a passerby, this show is just one of the hundreds you listen to weekly, then you should support that show. You should support those shows in that network, of course. But for the people that listen to this podcast in its final version, that have been listening to it for years in all of the different places that it has been originated or has been produced, those people hopefully support this show independently. And one of the things that I feel great about is that when people invest in this show, and they invest really in me, in the content that we produce on a daily basis at blacklistednews.com, you are supporting a direct support method, and you are part of this show. You're part of the broadcast. You're part of it. And that's where I think a lot of people have kind of lost their way. We watch television to get the information that we hope is somewhat truthful and valuable to us, or at least a lot of us, maybe not you out there, most of you, but a lot of people do. And they get sold products, ideas, agendas. They get sold a lot of things. But at the end of the day, the consumer is probably the last person that is considered. Sure, viewership matters. Having ratings matters. But all of that is dependent on advertiser support for the production of that content, whatever it is. Cable news, sitcoms, reality TV shows. So it goes on and on and on. That's why I want to promote our model, which is the alternative to that, because one of the things that frees us from that censorship, at least currently in a lot of forms, is that we're not dependent on YouTube, we're not dependent on Google, we're dependent on you. So that's not necessarily the most profitable by far ways to do this, because obviously I'm not famous. I'm not a TV star. I'm not a political trickster. I'm not somebody that has been a media or alternative media darling. I don't have a shtick, if you will. I'm not an economist. I'm not a former doctor that's telling you about vaccines. I don't have a shtick. I don't have a topic. There's a lot of people that are get into that interview circuit where I'll give you one. Dr. Nick Begich, his specialty is HARP. Talks about the HARP system. Of course, he knows a lot more than just HARP, but that's kind of why people for years brought him on. Alan Watt. There's a lot of the people I could point to that are these quote unquote experts or alternative media experts that get a lot of attention. Well, anyway, one of the things that we heard this week is that Trump has left his base. And of course, one of the planks of the Trump manifesto is making America great, bringing back manufacturing, bringing back an economy, And that's why people voted him in. A non-interventionist foreign policy, getting us out of wars. 100 days in, I'll hold back all of my criticism, because I do believe, and I've said this about Obama and every other president, that the president's pretty limited in what they can enact and in what they can do. They're handled by people that are in the IC, the intelligence community. They are spoon-fed information and given options by those people that make up what has now become this popularized term, which is the deep state. So, I don't hold everything against, or blame the president of the United States, who's just one person for all of the bad decisions that government makes. He's got some executive orders that he's signed, and there's definitely some feet there to hold to the fire, but by and large, it's hard to say. I mean, I really don't know what the political platform or what his allegiances are, and I think it's pretty despicable that you have now psychoanalysts, psychiatrists, and other people breaking their Hippocratic oath to publicly question the sanity of Donald Trump. Is he insane? Is he crazy? Is he all of these things? We'll see. We will see. Donald Trump was criticized this week for congratulating Recep Tayyip Erdogan on winning the Turkish referendum. Now, nobody, believe you me, nobody believes that he legitimately won. He is just a bad dude. He's a bad hombre. When you look at the tens of thousands of people that were rounded up after the post-coup that he squarely blames on a U.S. asset, Fethullah Gulen, as the orchestrator, while myself and probably a lot of you question whether or not this coup was engineered by somebody directly to Erdogan. Considering how much power he has put into his appointment, the president used to be kind of a rather than an Ottoman, he was more of a figurehead, very symbolic, similar to the Queen of England, the Windsor family, but now sealing a huge amount of power into the executive branch and wielding that against his political enemies. There's no doubt about that. Not to mention the fact that they are pivoting towards Russia in a lot of ways. Lots of new money is coming in to build pipelines, direct connections to Europe. Macedonia was brought. Was it Macedonia? Montenegro? We have a new NATO member that slid on in without a lot of talk. That just shows you. I can't remember if it was. I want to say Macedonia, but I could look it up during the break if I cared. But my point was that Turkey has been trying to get into the European Union for years and has not been able to get the approval of the elite. So there in Europe, in Brussels. So anyway, bad dude. Sorry for the Turkish people. This is a bad thing for Europe as well, because he is holding the European Union hostage with the refugees. And the fact that there's this warm reception by Donald Trump, which I don't think that Donald Trump would call up any world leader and tell him he's a scumbag. And most people, even if they're bad hombres, get a lot of support and a lot of lip service from the U.S. president. That's what they do. So we'll talk about that more. Lots coming your way. And we're going to talk about cotton and the Shanghai Free Trade Zone. Ooh, exciting stuff on the way. Don't go anywhere. More Blacklisted Radio to come. Shipped around the world so are dollars in a lot of different places. Warren Buffett took some heat this week. He's bringing Chinese investors into the United States to buy up homes. If you didn't think that real estate was just kind of out of whack with the local economies, it's because you have international foreign investment in a lot of places, like right where I live. Lots of people want to be near the F1 track. We have a global fanship of the city of Austin, and a lot of people are looking for places to put their dollars or their renminbis or their yuans or their euros, on and on. So real estate in the U.S. is it's something. It's physical, and if you're a rent seeker, you can find a decent return depending on where you buy homes. So this story came out. Berkshire targets wealthy Chinese buyers for U.S. homes. The Chinese have overtaken all nationalities besides Americans as the leading buyers of property in the United States. Gino Belfari, chief executive officer of Irvine, California-based Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, said in a statement that Juwai.com, I think that's how you say it, or Huawei, it's Juwai.com, Accord and other efforts overseas make it much easier for Chinese real estate buyers to find and shop our property listings. So Berkshire Hathaway, when the billionaire chairman Warren Buffett bought a bunch of energy companies, he ended up buying this home services company, this real estate brokerage, as kind of a side project. It just kind of went into the bundle, and we'll give you this. Okay, yeah, deal. And so now he's focusing a little bit more on that and realizing, well, the middle class in this country has eroded. Who's going to buy these, insanely expensive houses in California, downtown Austin, places like Scottsdale, Arizona, you name it, London, downtown New York? Who has the cash to buy $500,000 condos? Not your average American, not your average person working at McDonald's or competing with Flippy, the burger flipping automated robot, for your few dollars to get that McRib or whatever you get at McDonald's. Point being that the investment and prosperity that many people enjoy in this country are due to foreign investors bringing back dollars that we send around the world. And that's another dynamic. I mean, we do have this interdependent globalized economy. So, when I think people oversimplify, well, let's bring back coal, or let's bring back the manufacturing jobs that have been sent over to other nations, and let's bring back textiles. I mean, it sounds great, but there is this huge gap between what the people in this country can afford and what it would cost them to be able to purchase products that were not made by children in other countries. So there's this reality that these things can't happen. The people in this country would have to produce products that are either affordable to people in this country, the 320 million Americans, or those products have to get into a container box and go overseas, wherever, Europe, China, and their people, their populations have to buy those products. German engineered cars, probably more of them sold here in the U.S. than they are in Germany, because people want them and they're synonymous with great quality. U.S. products, I mean, we have a lot of Caterpillar, backhoes and excavators that we sell around the world. We got a lot of John Deere's. We've got a lot of tractors. There's a lot of products that are made in this country that are, big brand, globally recognized brands. But the people in this country aren't purchasing a lot of those products. Maybe if you're in construction or into farming. But we see with this documentary, the death of the farmer. I mean, this guy's he's like, we might be able to do it one more time. It's a big gamble on whether or not you're going to be able to produce, and the amount of money that you put into it, and the amount of, I mean, even if all the cotton, they have some, cotton wilt virus epidemic one season. That's not going to change the price that they may have to sell what cotton they can in the global market. Now, this is not new. Chinese investors, we talked about this story, came to us in 2014. Chinese investors signed up to help finance Pennsylvania Turnpike. Agents for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission began signing up Chinese investors who were promised permanent residency under a U.S. law in exchange for loaning money to help finance a major project to connect between the Turnpike and the Interstate 95 in suburban Philadelphia. Now, people were upset about it because they were giving Chinese, they actually spent a lot of money recruiting wealthy Chinese that wanted to come to this country without having to go through the long process of naturalization in the United States that is timely and expensive. Just ask the illegal immigrants. They'd rather, die or starve trying to make it here, as opposed to going through proper channels. But if you got money, and this is, kids, this is the lesson for everyone, not just in this country, but around the world. When you got a lot of money, the rules change. Things are different, and opportunities present themselves that are not presented to people that don't have money. So, the Turnpike's turned into this huge mess, and it was a huge project from Florida all the way up to the top of the East Coast. It just passed through Pennsylvania, this I-95 project. And it's just one that we, that because they were overtly advertising, it actually became a story. So, yeah, $500,000 per contribution provided $200 million for the $420 million project. So they found 400 wealthy investors that are now somewhat quasi American citizens. But this is the interconnectedness that we have. We don't have the dollars, they do. They've got the population, the people that have the money, and they're looking for places to put those dollars. Competing in a globalized economy doesn't necessarily benefit anybody. And that's one of the takeaways from this movie is that, yeah, we do have these problems. We have these huge gaps. Can Donald Trump fill them? I mean, I seriously doubt it. Can we make products that Americans can afford? You show me some paperwork that proves that, or you put together a business plan, I'd love to see it. I think it would be highly profitable. I think that people would rush to it just on the ethics level, wanting to help make America great again. And this brings us to another big story that happened this week. Paving the way for abuse, scams, and more, IRS hires private debt collectors. The Internal Revenue Service is hiring private debt collectors to snatch up those unpaid taxes, which consumer advocates warned Monday could come with a host of problems, from mistreatment to profit motive incentives. So, if you've ever not paid a bill and had your debt turned over to private debt collectors, you may have had to deal with this. Texas has pretty decent laws protecting consumers, but in most states, they can harass you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to give them money. They can. We've heard some of the, guys cursing and gals cursing at people, and trying to scare them and tell them they're going to go to jail, and just outright, in giving them incorrect information, scaring them, lying, using fraud, manipulation, and fear as a tactic to get people to give them money. The IRS is parasitic. Private debt collectors working for the IRS is going to be beyond the pale. And it's a definite concern, because now you have the government and this private, profit-motivated corporation working together to fleece and shake the citizens. You hear a lot about the tax code. It's not fair. Rich people aren't paying enough, and poor people don't get the incentives that they should. And I saw a article at the Wall Street Journal that said that only 37% of Americans actually pay income tax. most of the people in this country are lucky enough to get a refund and or can write off enough stuff that it completely negates their taxation. Now, that's primarily people that don't have a lot of money. We're talking under $20,000 annually, maybe even lower, minimum wage or gray market, black market workers that even qualify for that. If you don't make any money, you can do pretty well in this country living off of some of the systems. And there's this definite point between, I'd say, $20,000 and $40,000 annually, where it almost behooves you to not have a job, especially if you have kids. You start paying for health care and then realize that just, do the numbers, juxtapose that against, SNAP and other federal subsidies, Medicaid, and things that you can put your children on. The math is really squirrely, and it says that you're probably better off not getting a job. You're probably better off not making more money. Now, once you get above the 40 to 100 and whatever $1,000, it behooves you to work, and then actually you keep a little bit more than you would be giving, and then the profit incentive. But you have to get over that big hurdle of waste. They always say you work for 3 to 4 months out of the year just to pay the government off. Well, if you don't, now you'll have private tax collectors shaking you down. Not one of the many things that I like about these. When Trump was talking about, we need to depoliticize the Federal Reserve. The IRS is a corrupt institution that goes after conservatives. It's used as a tool by the Democrats to stifle free speech, to take away, churches' rights and blah, 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 blah. If you're paying taxes and you or not having to pay taxes because of a religious exemption, it's just like YouTube. Now you're on the dole. Now you're controlled by the federal government as to what you can say and what you can't say. So I understand why churches don't want to pay taxes. I mean, who does? But you're at their mercy. When you get into that relationship, you cede some of the control over your own life and your own businesses and your own freedoms to do that. Just like, China. We can yell at China all day long, but when they're manufacturing and producing the products that people in this country can afford, what's the alternative? Not buying products. There's that. We could just do without Chinese, T-shirts that you could buy for $10 at Target. Or you can find people that would just buy one item. If that T-shirt cost you $40 and that was the only thing that was afforded to you, people would just buy one T-shirt. There's that. I don't know if that's going to be good for the economy, but people want this reinvestment in the United States, but who's going to be doing it? Well, I can show you plenty of examples where the Chinese will be the ones that are investing in building this system for us, or taking us to the promised land. Another disturbing article: Trump brings age of biometrics to travel. I remember when people were getting naked because of the body scanners, protesting in front of airports. They were appalled that we had lost these freedoms and that we'd be molested by TSA agents. I remember that. Where are all of you young ladies that were protesting? It was fun. I miss those days. So anyway, soon it'll be hard for visa holders to board an international flight without submitting to a facial geometry scan. The TSA began testing facial recognition systems at Dulles Airport in 2015, then expanded to New York's JFK. Face reading a check-in kiosk will be appearing in Ottawa International Airport as well this spring. And British Airways is rolling out a similar system at London's Heathrow Airport, comparing faces captured at security screenings with separate captures at the boarding gate, making sure you didn't pass off your visa. Anyway, one of the big proponents is the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Larry Panetta, who took over the airport portion of the project in February, explained the advantages of facial recognition at the Border Security Expo last week. Sure, he was wined and dined by many of these companies. That's how it works. Facial recognition is a path forward we're working on Panetta said at the conference, quote, "We currently have everyone's photo, so we don't need to do any sort of enrollment. We have access to the Department of State's records, so we have photos of U.S. citizens. We have visa photos. We have photos of people when they cross into the United States, and their biometrics are captured into the DHS biometric database, IDENT. Some form of biometrics exist for every U.S. citizen." So we don't have to get into databases. We're not worried about privacy. We're not worried about a lot of issues. One of the things, call back to those naked body scanners. I remember one of the things that they said was, well, you can't save the photos. Okay, so yeah, it might show your breasts, and maybe, you're getting a free mammogram when you go through there. And yeah, we could see your junk and all of this, but nobody could take that information out of those screens. Well, that's kind of a moot point, because you could just whip out your cell phone and take a picture of the screen now. I do it often on my PC. It's real easy to do. So you could take that picture with you wherever you want, share it with friends and family on Facebook. I mean, the technology's there. So, a lot of the safeguards that we have to protect us, like the sharing of biometric information between departments and private companies that are using that information. I mean, it's not just the government. It's not going to be the government computer. It's going to be software that they purchase from private vendors that they will be using for this. Not a lot of talk about it. Not a lot of people in an uproar. Safety, safety, safety. War, war, war. We got people that are killing in the streets. We just had another terrorist killing. I don't want to say that. Can't say terrorist. Can't call them radical Muslims, even if that's what they are, even if the hat fits. I mean, I'm not trying to indict people or their religion. Sometimes people do wacky things for a variety of reasons that, but, to not call a spade, to not want to be fearful of saying things that may be true because they would be deemed politically incorrect is a huge issue that my children will probably have to deal with as they worry about being white cisgendered children of privilege in the new world order. All right, guys, quick break. More on the other side. It's Blacklisted Radio. Welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Alex Jones thinks that George Soros is making marijuana too strong. Other things he revealed during his deposition. Pretty interesting story. The unfortunate situation Mr. Jones finds himself in is in divorce court, trying to get his kids away from his wife, or getting more time, or maybe, I'm not really up on what he wants, but the lamestream media and alternative media kind of piled on, and one of the things that his lawyer said was that you can't take his radio show, things that he said, crazy diatribes, and apply that to his personality. You can't create a profile of him because it's performance art. And so, of course, being performance art means that he is a shill, that he is just an actor, and he is playing a character. I think most people play a character, first and foremost. I play a character. When I'm with my mother, I cut out about 20 words that I would use normally in front of my mother. Why? Because I try not to cuss in front of her. I don't broach certain topics. There's a lot of things that I do, and I try to curtail my normal thought process, or my normal comments, because it's my mom. When I'm on this radio show, I think about things a little bit more carefully because I want to make a point. And, I think that if you met me in real life, those of you that are friends and personal friends probably know that I'm very similar to the person that you hear, other than, I have news and, a bunch of computers in my face, and I'm thinking about, trying to make a point, come full circle on ideas. It's probably the biggest challenge that I have. So yeah, it's different. Some of the things that I would say here, I probably wouldn't say in a divorce court, and a lot of the things that I would say here, I wouldn't say necessarily to my wife. Point being is that people, just it's such a gotcha society, and I'm not a huge fan of Alex Jones because he's banging the mallet, the war drum for Donald Trump. He is somebody that is known for embellishing facts and trying to be, very confrontational. He's entertaining in that, but at the same time, many of those things are used against him, and he tries to become. He's trying to become a legitimate, mainstream media guy. He wants to be that guy, and he is chased by the ghost of Alex Jones of yesteryear, that I thought was more focused on all those Goldman Sachs crony bankers that just happened to enter into the swamp, and they're taking permanent residency in the Trump administration. I feel bad that, because he's so all in, he is forced to kind of continue to support whatever it is that Donald Trump does because he's all in. And so, when it comes to, this whole story, I just think it's a non-story. It's legal ease, trying to, differentiate between you as a person and you as a product, as a performance art. So, I agree with them, and I didn't think it was this big story, but it was like, will Alex Jones's followers, of course they have to be followers, right? Because he's like a cult leader. At least that's the way they make him sound. Will his followers forget him and leave Alex Jones now that they know he's a complete fraud? He cares about his children. Well, what about the kids at Sandy Hook? How do their parents feel? And they did a bunch of interviews with, these people that, I guess he had disparaged and had caused so much pain, and it wasn't that they listened to Alex Jones and probably he caused them pain. It's because people have been directed, and look at what this guy's saying. What do you think? How does that make you feel? I'm sure, he was spoon-fed some of his diatribes just trying to get a point out there, and that is, if you say things that are mean and maybe even inaccurate about kids dying, then you are the Antichrist. And the point is that I feel kind of sorry for him. Somebody that's, I don't feel sorry. I mean, he's a multimillionaire that has stepped on many heads to get where he's at. He is He's a thing. I don't even know what to say about Alex Jones sometimes. I mean, he's a thing out there. He's an entity. He's prolific. He puts out a lot of YouTube videos. I can tell you that, and I'm sure when he says things like YouTube censoring me, I'm like, you got 5 million videos on there. You're probably like a tenth of the content. So maybe a little bit of embellishment. Anyway, guys, it's not the messenger. It is the information that matters. Okay, so a broken clock is right 2 times a day. Food for thought. Thank you for the support. Continue to do that for us at blacklistradio.com. Share this video. It's going to be commercial free on YouTube, so enjoy that. I will be back next Sunday evening at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. I hope you will as well.